And he was a well-prepared legislator, and as I said, he was hardworking, he was creative, and compassionate. But none of that even parallels the great work as he did as governor. I ran on the same ticket with him, and basically I knew him well at the time, and I was very honored to be on the same ticket with him and to get elected at the same time. He always tells me he had a lot of coattails, so I would never get elected unless he got elected, but there's probably some truth to that. But at the same time, we've had many, many great governors in Minnesota. You know, I noticed in your program today that one of the former governors, John Johnson, is a member, received an award here. Of course, J.A.A. Burnquist was governor from 1915 to 1921. He had connections to the East Side. Floyd Olson was one of the great governors of Minnesota. Luther Youngdahl was one of the great governors of Minnesota. And Orville Freeman was one of Minnesota's great governors. But I think that Wendell Anderson was the greatest, no question about that. And I can repeat that, and I'm not exaggerating, that Wendell Anderson was the greatest governor of Minnesota. As I say, I served as Attorney General at the same time he was there, and it was interesting to notice that the state employees, whom I knew well and I talked to a lot, they were very proud to be in that administration, and they worked hard. And you can't always say that about people who are working for people at the top. But 1970 is when he got elected, and if you recall, and I'm sure it seems like a long time ago now to me too, but those were very tumultuous times for Minnesota. The state education system was floundering. The property taxes were skyrocketing because they were funding most of the districts that the counties and the school districts were raising property taxes, and it wasn't working. And of course the environment was deteriorating, and so what was needed was some strong creative leadership and someone to come in there with some new ideas and some new ways of doing things, and that's of course what Wendell did. The legislature started, and he was elected in November of 1970, and the legislature that legislative session began in January of 1971. And they really, the opposite party controlled both houses, and not that that's always bad, but the fact of the matter was a fact of life then. And nothing was really happening during that session. The administration, Wendell's administration, was introducing a lot of good programs and good solutions to the problems that were going on then, but nothing was happening. The legislators were a lot of older people who were kind of testing this young new governor, and they weren't really getting much done. And so the session came, and it ended on the third Monday in May, and without really doing much. And Wendy was very frustrated with it. And so usually when the session ends and nothing happens, the governor lets the legislators go home and kind of talk to their friends and kind of rest up and recuperate. He didn't do that. He was so angry with that whole do-nothing session that he called them back the next day. And so that wasn't very popular with the legislators at the time, but it was a fact that it did happen. And so the legislators met in May and June and July, and they start making some progress finally on the new school initiative that would have helped defray the cost of public education away from the counties to the state. And they passed one bill, but still wasn't the thing that Wendy wanted, and he vetoed it. And they passed another bill in August, or early August, that he still didn't like that because it really didn't do the job. And he was risking his political future on that because he was getting a lot of criticism, even from members of his own party who felt, well, this is the best we can do, sign it so we can go home. But he vetoed it again. It took a lot of guts to do that. But finally the session ended in October, and it was the longest session in the state's history, and brought about the most revolutionary change in school funding that we've ever had. It shifted the funding and equalized the amount of money going to school districts to not only the wealthy school districts who always had quite a bit of money, but gave a lot of money to the poorer school districts that were struggling very substantially. And he increased the amount of state participation from 43% to 65%. And it was just a remarkable thing to happen. It was miraculous. And of course, you all know that it got the title that received national acclaim, called the Minnesota Miracle, and rightly so. the Minnesota, after that, when Wendy was governor, Minnesota became the state that works. And again, I want to say the state that works, and unfortunately, we can't say that today because a lot of the changes and improvements that Wendy brought about have been dissipated in the number of years since then. And I could go on and talk more about his great achievements as governor, but he's a very self-effacing, modest guy, and I'm sure he'd be squirming over in his seat over there. Just want to add one other thing, that not only was he a wonderful public servant, one of Minnesota's best, but also he was a warm and dear friend, and I know that. And he's told me a number of times how many jobs he got me around the state and at the golf course. But the one job he did really get for me was in the Attorney General's office. I was a struggling law student working 3 jobs to get through, and I was not a great law student. I'm always the first one to say that. And Wendy told me one day that they were hiring the 4 new people at the Attorney General's office. And I said, that's fine, but they ain't looking for me. I said, they hired the guys at the top of the class, and that ain't where I was. And he said, no, he said, I got you an appointment over there. He said, you got to go over and talk to the Attorney General, Walter Mondale. So I went over there and sat there for 2 or 3 hours, and nobody talked to me. So I went home, and when they threw me out of the office, it was closing time. And I went home, and Wendy said, how'd it go? And I said, not too good. I said, I spent 2 or 3 hours there and didn't accomplish anything. And he said, look, go over there again. I said, no, don't bother. No, he says, I'm going to take you down there myself and make sure that you get an interview, which he did, and I got hired. And I'm sure that there are not many friends who would go to that length or to be that persistent and insistent that somebody gives a friend of his a job. So. But I'm sure there's many people in the East Side that know have the same kind of story I have, and testify to that kind of wonderful friendship. There's one thing Wendell Anderson appreciates, it's loyalty and friendship, and to this day he's still a wonderful friend to all of you, and certainly a wonderful, kind, thoughtful friend to me. So I'm honored to be here to talk about a good friend. It's a well-deserved honor. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to tell them about you. I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about our breakfast 2 weeks ago, about how we talked about your roots, about how much you love Sweden, about how much you loved growing up on the east side of St. Paul and still being a part of this high school. You know, the Anderson house, if you don't know, was, from here you can be there in 2 minutes. It was right off of Wheelock. And one of the things Wendy and I were talking about was Nelson's. Do any of you remember Nelson's restaurant, which is now Josephine's? Well, every Sunday, their chicken was great. And my mom and dad wanted to go to Tokenpella's. I said, no, we're going to Nelson's because their chicken is a lot better. And Wendy would talk about, when we sat down that Saturday, talk so much about the East Side. And while you think about that picture on the cover of Time magazine that sort of epitomized the state, when he held up that Northern, and how good you felt about being from here, and how good you felt about being from the East Side and having this guy that we all kind of knew represent this state. This guy who grew up here and graduated from here in 1950 and played on the hockey team and played for the Olympic hockey team and got his law degree from the University of Minnesota, and then went on to become the 33rd governor of this state, and then a United States senator from this state. And what I remember is thinking, you know, he isn't just a great Minnesota governor. He's a Johnson governor, a true Johnson governor. Would you welcome our honoree, Wendell Anderson.
Thank you very much. First, Dr. Burton, you said that you were not welcome on the hockey team because of your height. There are no height requirements for hockey. IQ, yes. I did interfere a little bit, provided interference for Warren with respect to Walter Mondale. And Warren had told me about Fritz standing him up. And I was on what's called the Appropriations Committee, which had the budget for the Attorney General. And